So children are at the worst in recorded history as far as mental health problems. The levels of anxiety, depression, ADHD, self-harming behaviors is out of control. Brand new study, 54% of teenage girls report being persistently sad. 32% have thought of killing themselves, 24% have planned to kill themselves, and 13% have tried to kill themselves. Schools are overwhelmed by the incidence of kids on medication and the kids suffering with panic attacks and other mental health problems. It's awful what's happening. And what I learned really early in my career is the most effective intervention to raise mentally healthy kids is parenting strategies. And the first one, obviously, if you want mentally healthy children, you have to be mentally strong yourself. I talk about how important that is. And then there's this system that I've become attached to that I just think is so effective. And I wrote the book with my friend, Dr. Charles Fay, who is the president of the Love and Logic Institute. And that program is actually very important to me personally, because when we brought that into our home, it just became so much happier. And so in the book, we mixed neuroscience and the program I've been using for years with Love and Logic. So we combine these two programs to really do what we think of as the latest innovations in parenting.
Every parent wants mentally strong kids. We want our kids to be confident, kind, responsible, all of these things. And obviously, kids intuit how you're behaving. That's much more important than what's coming out of your mouth. If your behavior doesn't match, what you're saying, they're paying attention to the behavior much more than the words. But where are even the best intentions going wrong? I mean, the statistics that you quoted are devastating. There's a lot of things contributing to that, of course. But where is it where we think we're doing the right thing and perhaps we're misguided?
We're rescuing children way too much. We're solving their problems because of our low self-esteem. And I'm guilty of this, I think, for the first 3. And I love all of my children. And if you don't feel really great about yourself, you get self-esteem by doing for your children when they could do for themselves. And then what you do is you create incompetent people. So when a child comes to you and says, I'm bored, too often parents then scramble to get them the latest video game or take them someplace rather than just give them the problem back. Mm-hmm. Oh, I wonder what you're going to do about that. And then be loving enough to not fix it. So my wife and Chloe, our 20-year-old, when she was 6, 7, they'd have these monster homework battles. And I'm a child psychiatrist, and I look at Tana and go, you've done 2nd grade. Get out of this fight. She wouldn't listen to me. But 3 of her friends recommended parenting with Love and Logic. And that's the foundational principle. Let kids solve their own problems. I mean, be a good coach, be a resource, don't solve it. And so when Tana really understood it, she announced to Chloe, sweetheart, I've done 2nd grade. I'm never, ever again going to ask you to do your homework. It's on you. And if you don't do it, you'll just have to be okay with the consequences. And Chloe had a fit and said, I never said I was going to do my homework. I'm just not going to do it now. Stormed off, came back 20 minutes later. She's now a junior at Chapman. No one's ever asked her to do her homework again. And she had a 4.2 out of high school. She's responsible. She's competent and can solve her own problems. We go wrong when we steal their self-esteem by solving their problems. So, for example, Chloe knew it. If she forgot her homework, nobody's bringing it to her. If she forgot her sweater on a cold day, nobody's bringing it to her. If she forgot her lunch, it takes 24 hours to starve. Nobody's bringing it to her. And she only forgot those things like twice. And now she doesn't forget anything.
You learn the lesson. Yeah, you become self-directed. You develop that self-efficacy that will serve you later in life. Self-esteem comes from performing esteemable acts on behalf of yourself. And if you're always rushing in to solve the problem or rescue, you're depriving your child of the opportunity to learn those things.
Right.
It's a short-term gain, long-term pain situation.
Right.
And I think a lot
love.
of time-crunched parents are like, okay, let me just solve the problem because I have other things to do and I can fix this, rather than allow the child to scramble and mess up and figure it out on their own, because sometimes that's not convenient.
Right. And it's also not goal-directed. So principle number 1 is know what you want. What kind of parent do you want to be? And what kind of child do you want to raise? Ask yourself that question. Ask the other parent that question. What kind of parents do we want to be, and what kind of child do we want to raise? Because then your behavior stems from whatever mission statement you create. And then the second thing is attachment. It's bonding. And that requires 2 things: time, actual physical time, and listening. Parents talk way too much. And we have all this great knowledge and all these great experiences. We just want to pour it into their little heads, and they tune us out.
Mm-hmm.
If you do active listening with them, they'll be so close to you. But if you tell them how to think and you interrupt them, it's very bad for the relationship, for the attachment. And then I have an exercise in the book that's just gold. I mean, it works. It's worked every time. I think parents who actually do it the way I ask is 20 minutes a day with the kid. Do something with them they want to do. And during that time, no commands, no questions, no direction.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first figured it out, and then I just saw it work, and it worked, and it worked. My literary agent at the time, Carl, he called me up and he said, I'm having trouble with my 2-year-old. So he had a child later in life, and Laura was 2, and she's like, she never wants anything to do with me. And I'm like, you're ignoring her. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, do this. And I told him special time, 20 minutes a day, do something with her that she wants to do, which means basically sit on the floor and play with her blocks. And no questions, no commands, no directions. And he's like, that won't work. He tended to be oppositional. And I'm like, oh, great, you represent an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
I said, you need to do this. I'm going to call you in 3 weeks. Get the party started. And 3 weeks later, I called him up. And I'm like, hey, Carl, it's Daniel. Daniel, she won't leave me alone. All she wants to do is be with me. I walk in the door. She grabs my leg. She wants her time. Right. Because isn't that what we all wanted? I mean, unless our parent was awful, we all wanted their attention. And, I'm one of 7. So, my mother had to be judicious about how she did it. But because my dad was never home, we didn't have a relationship. And 1972, turned 18, he told me if I voted for McGovern, the country would go to hell. And because we didn't have a relationship, I voted for McGovern, and the country went to hell, but it had nothing to do with McGovern. It was because of Nixon and Watergate. And I like having influence with my kids, but there's no influence without connection.